everybody. This is Teen Title Talk with Erin.
And Adi.
This is the podcast
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today on the podcast, I have Adi Rule with me. Courtney, my usual cohort, is not in because she has an adorable baby. So Adi Rule has been in before. She's, just as a reminder, a YA author, teen book lover, and all sorts of
Cat
other things.
fancier.
Yes, that's so true. So thank you for being here, Adi.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to read, we actually already read. It would be really unprepared of us if we had not read.
We did read them.
We read two fantasy novels. I read The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta.
And I read Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd.
And before we do that, before we have a little book talking session, we're going to go ahead and dip into the jar of teen angst and answer, I know, a couple of questions about our teen
So
selves.
much angst.
Oh, okay. This is from someone who obviously maybe is in like a rural area or wants to go to one. I don't know. Did you ever go camping? Where was the best camping and what did you do? Go ahead, Adi. I'm sure you went camping.
I went camping
as a teen
all the time. Yeah. Some of the camping that I used to do, my family and I used to go camping every year in Maine, on the Maine coast, on a little island.
It sounds magical.
It was super magical. Camping by the ocean is really, really fun. And the island was cool, too, because there was this sort of rampant deer population with no predators. So you could kind of just walk around in the woods, and there's all these deer. And
when you said island, I pictured like a very tiny island.
It's pretty tiny, yeah.
And then there were just deer clustered everywhere on it.
So many deer. Yeah, maybe too many. As a child, it's very magical. Oh. My favorite horrifying story that happened when we were camping. I broke my nose one time. Oh. Yeah.
Wait, before we go any further, was this tent camping or was it cabin camping?
Tent camping.
Gotcha.
Tent. And then we used to go with my friend Jasmine, and there were these outhouses, right, where these sort of communal, everyone from the different sites would go and use these outhouses. And Jasmine and I were coming back sort of late in the evening. It was starry and beautiful, and we come back to the site, and my dad is sort of stretched out on the ground, staring up at the stars. Stargazing. And we're like, oh, it's so pretty. And we're like, good night. And we go into our tents and we zip ourselves up. And the next morning...
Is he still there? Oh, God.
Come to find out, he had actually tripped on a piece of firewood and had fallen, like totally wiped out, and was lying there prone, unable to speak.
Oh my God.
In pain. And we're just like, good night. But luckily my mother found him.
Well, thank God. He wasn't really showing signs of distress. He
could have been dead, though. I mean, that story would be
awful.
Would be scary.
God. Yeah, no, you're never going camping again after that. I'm glad your dad's okay.
So how about you? Tell me your worst camping horror story or your most fun.
It wasn't horror, but it was Vermont, in rural Vermont, and that's where I met my husband.
Oh, on this trip?
No, in Latin class. We met in high school. And so we all would get together and do outdoorsy things as dates instead of actually going on a date.
That's good.
Well, we'd go to waterfalls and stuff and camping and shooting a biathlon rifle, and one time we drove all the way to Radio Shack, which was in Burlington, and it was an event.
Nothing says romance like Radio Shack?
No, I guess
in Burlington?
Not. It's a 45-minute drive, so that's why it was oh, sure, I'll go with you. And then we chatted the whole way. Special time.
That's really sweet, actually.
But we went camping up the 7 Mile Road. And the 7 Mile Road, I don't remember if it's actually 7 miles. I feel like it's definitely not 7 miles, but maybe it is. And we've gone with a bunch of friends, and we brought this big tent. And we were setting up the tent, and it was billowing, almost like one of those bouncing houses, you know, when you flip all the edges out, and it just kind of settling, and it's all billowy. Okay, that's obviously not the same as a bouncing house, right?
Right.
And we're on the we're at the end of the 7 Mile Road, which is, you're camping on a dirt road, which is hard.
Okay. You're camping on, you're setting the tent up on the
road?
road?
Basically on the road. I mean, it's like slightly off the road. It's at the end of the road.
So not a lot of traffic on this road?
No.
Okay.
This is a dirt road that barely you can tell is a road. And at the end is like a patch of grass in the woods, and you're there. So we were all remarking that it looked like super fun, and it was like a bouncing house, and we should jump in it.
Dear.
I did. I like straight up jumped belly flop wise. Like I went for a dive.
You went for it.
And I swear I thought it was going to hold me up.
To just sort of bounce you. So how did it go?
So it hurt to belly flop onto a dirt road. Like, just picture it without the tent.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah.
My jaw's never been the same. It was like, my head was like... But I mean, you know, you live and learn.
I guess so.
I've never done it again.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
It was
because
not
you
that
did
smart.
it to yourself.
It's not a very smart. I'm just going to say my imagination might have got the better of me. Like, that looks like such a fun...
Right. So that's our
bouncy
PSA
house.
for today. If
Yeah.
it, no matter how much it looks like a bouncy house, if it isn't one,
Don't just dive in.
Dive onto it.
No, please don't.
Right.
It will hurt.
Good.
No matter who you want to impress, guys.
Wow.
All right, next one. Did you have a job? All right, as a high schooler, what was it, and were you good at it, or did you ever screw it up? How about you?
So I kind of had a job. I used to teach theater at the summer rec program, and then I started a theater camp when I was 15 turning 16, and it was really fun. And
That sounds awesome.
we just went to our local theater, community theater group, and said, we want to do a 5-week camp for kids in the summer. And they're like, okay. And we ran it for 10 years, and we would do an original production at the end of the summer.
Did you do mostly what did
Musicals.
you do for musicals? Okay, gotcha.
So I would write the book, and my partner in crime would write the music. He was a composer.
Awesome.
And it was really, really fun. Did I ever screw it up? I mean, who knows, you know.
Live theater.
All constantly. But one thing that comes to mind is we did a show that took place in ancient Egypt, and we were very, very faithful to the costumes and to the what they would have worn, and it was just this sort of light, sort of cottony, linen white
Did
fabric.
that go over well?
So at the dress rehearsal, you could see everybody's underpants.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute, this might not work.
Luckily, it was not the performance.
Good.
So I accept that. All those traumatized, young adults.
But you were able to fix it in time.
We fixed it. We did fix it.
And also, did you have a costume person, or did you guys just do every part of production?
We did everything. The kids and us did everything.
Oh, okay.
Kids,
It's collaborative.
we were so much older than them, but
Right, not a lot.
we did all of it. It was really fun. What about you? Did you have a job?
I did, yeah. I worked at, since I was 14, I had a job. I worked at the Tempest Bookshop.
Aw.
And then I also worked at Casey's Bagels for a while. And so that was a bagel shop, obviously. I remember little things about that one that I screwed up. I think one time I didn't put the coffee, the big coffee pot underneath to catch the coffee. I started the coffee and then it was just pouring out.
I still do that sometimes.
I love that job because Tristan and I would get there and it was just the two of us and we made cream cheese. We'd make the cream cheese.
How
and
do
wait
you
for
make
the bagels to arrive.
cream cheese?
I think I've had this conversation with Courtney on this before. So
One more time.
There was some sort of base, so then you pour in seltzer water, and then we throw in all the veggies. It was in a huge mixing bowl, and we just make it and put it in the bins for the day.
Wow.
Another time though, I sliced my hand while I was cutting someone's bagel, and you get really fast at it because you're just like
Yeah.
But I sliced my hand, and it was the first time I'd ever done that. I didn't know what to do, and I was like, should I just pretend it's not happening and keep going and making the bagel?
And bleed
Obviously
all
not.
over
Again.
everything.
Tristan's like, you should stop now and leave that, and I'll bleach everything. She was wiser than me, even as a 16-year-old. She still is. And then the one that I felt most bad about. I'm telling you all this because teens listening, you might screw up your job a little bit. Does not matter. You're a teenager.
You will totally screw
It's
it up.
totally
You will
fine.
try
We
your
all
best,
did.
and everyone has done it.
I was supposed to order a special edition of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah.
For someone's birthday present.
For
It was
the
like a
book
special
shop.
order for the bookshop.
Not the bagel place.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
And I didn't write that it needed to be a special edition. So this normal edition came in. It was so close to Christmas. They got this regular edition. They're like, well, I don't want, that's not like a good Christmas gift. It's the normal.
Yeah.
Zen
Like
and
the
the Art of-
paperback.
Yeah. I want like this special edition. I wanted to get the special edition copy. And I felt so bad. Because I think I just wasn't differentiating it in my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't know enough about books then to like really grasp that. I thought I just put the order in really well. So that was a bummer.
You tried your best.
I did, and my boss was very understanding. And though he was stressed out at the moment, because obviously the person was angry, it wasn't like he fired me or anything. He was like, "It happens. It happens. It's fine."
But in terms of the customer, like on my list of things to get angry with other people about,
Zen and the Art of
I'm
Motorcycle
not sure
Maintenance.
that would be at the top of the list.
No,
but
what did they read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
That's
Jeez. All
that would be a
right.
good question for next time. Like, how did you ruin the holidays? Right?
I'll put it in the jar.
Everyone at home,
How
tell us
did you do
how
it?
you ruined the holidays.
I'm sure I did. Or did anybody else ruin the holiday for you? All right. Did you ride the bus or walk? Any funny bus stories? Or any funny walking stories?
I really don't. I don't have any funny bus stories or walking stories. So I lived 7 minutes from my high school, and
Driving, running, or walking?
driving.
Okay.
I lived 7 minutes from my high
We're
school,
jumping.
and school would start at 7:40 or 7:30 or something.
Yeah, okay.
And the bus that went to my house, there was like one bus. So the bus that went to my house would come by at 5:10 in the morning.
Okay.
So
whoa.
they would want me to be on the bus for like over 2 hours to go 7 minutes from my house to
Is
the
it
high school.
because
I don't know.
of all the routes out into the wilderness?
guess.
Or something?
So I never actually took the bus. My mother agreed to drive me to school,
that's lucky.
which was very nice of her. And she would often forget to pick me up after school, but that wasn't as bad as...
Did you get your license when you were 16?
I got my license when I
And
was
were
16.
you able to drive
Yes.
yourself? Okay, cool.
Then I could drive myself, so that was good. And then I had a car,
That's great.
which was
Was
good
it a
too.
good car or was it a completely beat up?
It was a great car. It was I don't know if anybody out there remembers Eagle Summit wagons.
That sounds fascinating.
But it was like a kind of like a station wagon, but it was sort of tall and it had a real flat butt, so it was really easy to park. Like you could parallel
great.
park it really easily because it didn't stick out. So
Nice.
its name was Pat.
Pat.
Yeah. Do you name your cars?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What's your current car's
I don't
name?
know, actually.
What?
I stopped. I should have said it. I used to name my cars.
Eggplant. That's your
Belle
car's
and
name.
Ruby was my second car, I think.
Aw. So you took the bus, or did
I
you
took
walk?
the bus until I definitely did not walk. It was like down the mountain.
7 Mile Road.
Down the mountain, then back up the mountain. No, for a while, and they just had the shorter bus come to our, because it was farther out and it was
Yep.
up the mountain, so it was like they put on the chains on the tires to come get us. In the winter time and the mud season. But no, the one that springs to mind, I mean, I felt like the bus was a little traumatizing for me when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
Especially running for the bus.
Elementary
I have
school
like vivid
bus.
memories
Oh,
of
yeah.
if I was running for the bus, like if I was late, running through the snow to the bus was traumatizing because you're like, and you're little and you're trying to get through the snow.
Yeah.
And everyone is staring out the window.
And they're going to leave you behind.
And you've worried they're going to
And then
leave
what
you
do
behind.
you do? I had a bus driver in elementary school who used to forget to drop me off. And then it'd be like, I guess I just live on the bus now.
Just end up back at the bus barn.
Yeah.
But the vivid memory I have is I think it was like a marching band trip maybe.
Yeah.
And I played the bells, which was a pain to
Can you
carry.
hear the bells?
In the marching band? Probably not. No. I was useless. I don't know. It was just an exercise for me, I guess. But was this kid. He was also in percussion, obviously not the bells. He was playing like the snare. If you had seen him, you would know it wasn't the bells. He had like dreadlocks, and he was just a gruff character. It would have been magical if he was the bells player, because that would have been like
that'd be cool.
Breaking the norm. But I for some reason had to bet him he couldn't eat a package of saltines and drink 2 liters of Sprite. And
so, yeah, okay.
And he did try. Did not work out. So I won the bet, but he barfed out the window a lot, and I felt really bad.
At least he went out the window and not all over you.
It was mostly out the window, I think.
Yeah. Have you been barfed on by your friends before?
No.
As a teen?
Not on. No, I've held my friend's hair up while barfing.
Yeah. That's a question for next time,
I wasn't
too.
Barfing and holding their hair up. I was holding their hair up. I remember Kim had a sick day, and we'd watch Bob Ross. I was in there with her watching Bob Ross paint it's Bob Ross, right?
The painter.
Yeah.
I had a friend barf on me from a ride, at the fair. He was up in the zipper.
The Deerfield Fair?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He barfed from the zipper, got on me.
Oh, no. Someone's tear came back and hit me on the Superman ride. I'm sure it was
Were they
their
crying,
tears.
or was it like...
Everybody's eyes were watering. It must have been. I'm saying that
the Six Flags
it wasn't spit.
Superman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been spit, right?
Awesome.
It was definitely tears.
It was probably spit.
And tears. All right. Let's talk about books. So,
all right.
The Grim Lovelies. What's it about? By Megan Shepherd.
So so Anouk is the main character, and she is a beastie, which is an animal turned human.
Okay.
And she serves an elegant witch in modern day Paris. When the witch is murdered, the magic keeping Anouk and her fellow beasties human begins to wear off. So we've got like this race against time.
Okay, gotcha.
To make matters worse, they've been accused of the murder, and the magical elite are after them. It's a race against time and across France as Anouk tries to solve the crime and stop herself and her beastie family from losing their humanity forever.
Kidding. That sounds really interesting.
A lot of stakes in this one. All right, so you read
The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta, and I will say right away that I know Amy Rose. I love her writing. I've read all of her books so far. This is my favorite. I'm just going to put it out there. This one's my favorite of hers so far.
Wow, that is high praise.
And what happens is, it is it's fantasy, obviously. It's in something that's like Italy. Mm-hmm. It's in a place that's like Italy. And it's sort of a mafia story. It's like a twist on a mafia story. Mm-hmm. So Teo is the main character, Teodora, and her father gets poisoned. He basically opens a letter and gets poisoned by the letter. And so she then has to travel to the capital in hopes of finding this antidote for him, but she has to go as his son. She is not his son, as the heir.
Okay.
So she goes, and, the plot thickens as she goes, and she meets a Strega. Strega is someone who has magic. She's also a Strega. And the Strega lore is are they real, are they not?
Yeah.
Mostly they were banished, right? So... she kind of is a Strega in hiding, really. And she meets Cielo. Cielo is a Strega who can transform from girl to boy and boy to girl.
Interesting.
Back and forth seamlessly. And so Cielo takes Taya under his and her wing. They never say there. They always, when she's a boy, when he's a boy, they use he. And when she's a girl, they use she. Then Cielo teaches Teo to do the shift, basically.
Wow.
And so Teo goes there, and I don't want to spoil anything, but you find out a lot more about the Strega while you're at the Capitol and what they're being used for and why they aren't really in the public anymore. It's kind of like X-Men. It's like the Strega are magical and powerful, but they're easily, basically, used by people in power.
Okay.
So... it was very, very good. All right, I'm going to ask you questions about yours first.
Okay.
Grim Lovelies. All right, so this feels like an original take on a Cinderella story with beasts and witches instead of servants and princes. Did this feel like a retelling, or did it feel more inspired by? What mark would you give it for originality?
So the world felt very original to me. I really loved this world. It's definitely a fairy tale, but it's not a retelling. So there are handsome princes, servant girls, high fashion, goblins, witches. But you also have like fast cars. You have transgender and homosexual characters. And in terms of good and evil, there's a lot of gray area. Unlike the fairy tale sort of good guy. I mean, there's a little bit of that. You can tell that the characters themselves have been influenced by fairy tales. They talk about fairy tales a lot. So they refer to fairy tales that they learned growing up. And you come across like echoes of fairy tales. There's a character who wears glass shoes, for example.
Interesting. Okay.
But I really think this story at its heart is not the tale of Cinderella. It just sort of dresses up like it a little bit sometimes.
Interesting. It's kind of like a nod to it and then goes on its way.
It's a nod to a lot of different fairy tales.
Interesting. Okay, cool. That sounds really fascinating. Let's talk about characters. You said that it has some great diversity in the cast. How were the characters? Did they feel in depth to you and authentic? Did they have interesting backstories? Were they superficial? How were they?
So there are a lot of them introduced right away. And a ton of like hot guys. Like, oh, he's over there, he's over there. And I had a little trouble keeping them straight at first. But the author was pretty explicit about how we were supposed to feel about each of them, which actually helped. So take that for what it is.
Interesting.
I feel like everyone's character traits were maybe a little bigger and sharper than they might have been in a quieter book. But they were interesting. I felt bad when bad things happened to them. I was attached to them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite?
I did. My favorite character was Hunter Black. He's one of the beasties. And he's one of those characters, I'm not going to give too much away, but you sort of feel is intentionally two-dimensional for a long time. And then suddenly he isn't. And there's this whole other person there who's kind of
got some depth.
Been there.
Okay.
I think we'll probably see some deeper character development in book 2. I think that she's maybe setting us up for that, for some of these characters.
Okay, gotcha. That sounds cool. All right, you said it was really action-y, because they're just speeding across Paris, right? And
they are.
Is it Paris or all of France?
All of France.
All of France. So did it...
sort of based in Paris.
Did it take off right at the beginning? Was there a good hook, or did it take a while to kind of get into?
Yeah, it sucked me in. So I think what was really interesting about the beginning of this book and as it progressed is that the world is full of these sort of clashing elements. So it's modern-day Paris, but technology interferes with magic.
Okay.
So Anouk is this maid using feather dusters and phonographs, but outside the window, people are riding motorcycles and listening to Daft Punk, and it's this modern city. So when you meet Anouk and she loves her mistress so much, you know, this witch that she works for, and she's so proud of her hard work scrubbing floors and polishing the silver. And then she just occasionally makes references to these punishments and things.
Oh, no.
Like, it's no big deal. And then you find out 2 of her toes are missing.
What?
And how did that happen? And so there's really this uneasiness right from the start. Like, what is the real picture
Right,
here?
exactly.
I think
She's
it's done
little,
really well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So... how about pet peeves? It sounded like you overall really liked this book. Did you have any pet peeves?
I did. I did really like the book overall. I mentioned before some gray areas in terms of good and evil,
right?
Which I liked. But it also sometimes caused a little disconnect in my brain. Like, so I think a lot of times tension comes from knowing that we have to do something that is going to be dangerous, or is going to be, but there's no way around it. There's no other path. So sometimes characters would react in these kind of extreme, action-packed, fairy tale-esque ways to problems that I wasn't prepared to see as totally cut and dry.
Okay.
So there are moments of them being like, of course, you know, we have to do that. And I'm thinking like, okay, I guess you have to do that.
There's 5 other things you can do instead.
You know? So again, I'm waiting to see what happens in the next book. And so that brings me to my actual pet peeve. This is not Megan Shepherd's fault, and this is just my opinion. But let me take this opportunity to air my grievances. It's not a criticism of her in particular, but the practice of publishing half of a book. This is half a book.
Okay.
It's like it's a 2-part episode of a TV show. I enjoyed it. I'll definitely read the next one when it comes out, whenever that years. I mean,
I know. I think it's sort of soon.
Is it
I think
soon?
it is.
They do that often, where they'll be pretty close together. So that's good. And I like a big story that arches across multiple books.
Sure.
But I feel like each book should also feel complete in some way on its own, especially the first one.
And this one was not.
And this just felt like, here's the first half of the book. So that's maybe not a complaint, but that's going in. Just be prepared for that. If you need to read the whole thing at once, maybe
or if
wait.
you want a standalone, this is not going to do it.
It's not a standalone, or maybe read it when the next one comes out.
Huh. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and I hate that when they do with the like final installment of the movies.
Yeah.
The big epic movies. It's like they split it in two for Harry Potter and like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about. It's like it did not need to be two movies, but they're kind of milking it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that is what they're like, oh, well, we want people to be baited for the next one.
And it works. And it's not like I would say, you need to edit half of this book out. I mean, it felt like a tight, book.
And you needed everything in there.
You needed everything in there.
Okay.
So no complaints. It was just, I get to the end and I'm like, what?
Do you think that they were like, it's just too big? Maybe she gave them two books in one. And how much that would have been, like 500 pages.
Yeah, this is a pretty fat book, right?
Maybe the publisher was just like, the teens just aren't reading that length. Do you
375
think?
pages.
So it would be like 600 to 700 pages, which is a lot.
That's a lot of pages.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
Let's do the math.
All right. Are there any moments that will stick with you now that the book is closed?
Okay, so let me preface this by saying that I was a rat owner.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm very protective of their images in media. I love rats. You
must be distressed because I feel
like
rats don't usually have a good
little companions.
Oh.
So there was a moment that was really tough for me. This is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess. So, but one character bites the head off of a rat in order to power a spell, and there are sort of brief nods to thanking the creatures that are sacrificed throughout the story, and definitely the gruesomeness is intentional, and it's part of like the overall canvas of the story. But at the same time, the story really emphasizes the difference between humans and animals, and it serves the story for those differences to be enormous, because the beasties are human; they don't want to be animals again. But the rat thing is played off even a little bit humorously.
Oh.
I hesitate to call this a criticism because I'm hopeful that all this is setting up like a larger exploration of this complicated subject in the second book.
Okay.
Things like intelligence and emotion being really continuums rather than on-off switches.
Right.
But that was a moment that felt a little bit lighter.
So clearly, like, the rat was lesser.
He was lesser
and more disposable.
He was disposable, and it also indicated that he was a pet that had been with this character for a long time. And the character just had to, like, but that was his purpose, was to get his head bitten off. Yeah. And it says something about the world. It's not that I'm complaining that the world is violent and ugly, because that's absolutely what she was going for.
Right.
But,
But
be
it just
warned.
made you sad.
It made me sad.
It made you really sad.
It made me sad.
A little rat. Okay. Well, prepare for animal cruelty
Oh.
if you read Grim Lovelies.
Yes. Be prepared.
It sounds interesting. So
it is. I would recommend it. It was a lot of fun and kind of a different sort of world and magic and stuff. So, so let's talk about The Brilliant Death.
The Brilliant Death. Here
Love
it
the
is.
title.
It's lovely.
You did a great job at the beginning. I was thinking
I feel like I didn't. I'm like, summing it up is actually hard.
Well, yeah, it seems like it's a really tough book to write a synopsis for.
Right.
And something that I'm not clear on is the tone of this book. Is it funny? Is it intense? Is it something sort of in between? What's it like?
And I feel like always in preparation, I like go and look at the synopsis online to ask you questions about the book, and you do the same, right?
I do, yeah.
And I know that in the synopsis online, it's kind of like talks about Teo as she's a strega and she can turn people into mirrors and boxes, and it kind of gives this almost light tone when you're like, oh, okay, well, she's just turning people into these delicate little objects. It is not funny at all.
No.
It is intense from the beginning. It is super intense. The Sangros, her family, it has like a legacy of killing. I mean, that is what they do. They kill. Except for she doesn't kill, she turns people into objects. And then it's like, is it better or worse? I don't know. So yeah, it's super intense from the beginning. It's not funny at all. So I wonder if maybe that little, because it almost is like, oh, strikers are only things from fairy tales. It almost gives it almost a light sound.
Yeah.
Because she's turning people into music boxes and there's fairy tales involved, but not at all funny. And here it's like, and right off the bat, you start feeling for the characters, and a couple of them, they're gone right away. So you're just kind of like, oh no, okay, this is. That's pretty good. It's intense.
Okay.
If you're up for that.
So, Amy Rose writes beautiful prose, which is a poem I just made up.
I love it.
This is 19th century Italy,
right.
Sort of, right?
Sort of.
Or something adjacent.
It's like a nod to it.
So what is the language like? Is it stylized? Does it read like a fairy tale? Is it more relaxed and conversational?
It is stylized and beautiful. I definitely feel the Italian connection because her lush setting feels like Italy. All the names definitely have an Italian flair to them. It does feel like old Italy. However, it's also just, I love her, so many turns of phrase. And you can see in my book, I have
all those
wrapping out all
Post-its.
these little Post-its. I just love some of her turns of phrase. I'm just going to give you like a taste of a couple of them.
Okay.
So she travels a lot and you see this like lush countryside, but the way she describes it is really nice. So they're out on their journey and it says the trail met with the dirt road that pulled travelers across the Uccelli. Trees closed in above us, splintering the moonlight. I could hardly tell shadows from sharp ruts, and yet I kept a breathless pace. I knew the turns of this path as well as I knew my own body, but hours passed, and each step grew less familiar. The road became a stranger.
Oh.
I just thought that was a really nice way to sum up a travel scene.
And those verbs.
I know. Oh, there was one I loved toward the end. Again, I marked so many different spots, but the images she invokes. Our first sight of Amalia paired well with the dawn. I thought that was really pretty.
It's almost like a wine reference.
Yeah.
Like Italian.
Yeah, exactly. They talk about the generous view of the Stata River. It wrapped around the whole city like a green silken necklace, and like a woman's neck came wreathed in perfume. Can't you just smell the flowers?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. Sorry, I'm just going to keep going.
Keep going.
Not that one. Where's the bird one? I just love this. Oh, anger, guilt, and fear rose like a flock of birds. They perched at the edges of my mind as I stole behind the hedge, closing myself into the space between the rough stone walls and the slight prickle of the shrubbery. Can't you just see anger like perched as a bird?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I tagged so many different phrases. I just really love her writing. It's vivid. It's lush. You feel like you want to be there. And it's also a really good plot. So don't think it's all setting. It's not. People are dying all through there. There's intrigue everywhere.
Nice. So it seems like there are a lot of characters. Or maybe just from the synopsis, it seems like there are a lot of characters. Who was your favorite and who surprised you?
Okay, so there are a lot that they run into. But mainly there's Teo. There's like three that I particularly was drawn to. Teo, you're in her point of view most of the time. She shifts into being a boy when she's in her disguise, but throughout she very much just felt like a girl to me in a disguise as a boy. She wasn't exactly comfortable in her male body. I really resonated with her most. I just felt like maybe it was just because I was so embedded in her character that I was connected with her most. So she was my favorite in the way that I connected with her. Cielo was definitely the most crush-worthy. But you're looking at Cielo through Teo's eyes. So Cielo, you're like, oh yeah, everybody's going to crush on Cielo. It doesn't matter whether it's girl or boy form. You just love Cielo. The descriptions of Cielo are beautiful. Cielo's character is really resonant. And my favorite badass was Azura. There's this moment. She's a Strega, very powerful one, and there's this moment where this guy makes like a lewd gesture at her and like undoes his belt, and she makes a scene. So I just wanted to like give a sense of her power here because it was like, whoa, what's happening? Oh my god, she's so intense. I love her. Let's see. So small items rose from Ambrosia's pockets. Then Lorenzo's knives and coins. This is what Azura is doing. She says, then Lorenzo's knives and coins and handkerchiefs. Vani's coat produced a dueling pistol with a wooden handle and a brass barrel topped with dragons like cresting waves. The pistol's thin snout pointed up toward the ceiling as it floated away. Then Vani tried to snatch it back. The Strega's fingers moved as quickly as a puppeteer's, and it sailed halfway across the room. Wait a minute, is that the right part? She does this thing. I know. Well, she like waves her hand.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's a little bit farther down. The girl's hand spun in a lazy circle. Pasquale's belt, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, slithered from his waist and rose in the air. Her eyes went hard, and the assortment of knives hanging in the air flew at Pasquale's throat. The pistol shot, the ball flying so close to his shoulder that it nipped the shirt and left a smudge of black powder. His belt slid around his throat, tightening. 2 coins covered his eyes as if he were already a dead man. I mean, like,
awesome.
I think he learned his lesson from that.
The coins are a
and
nice
then
touch.
The person is like, I think you've proven your point. and she just does it with a slight wave of her hand, and I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So she made an impression on me definitely as the most badass. She's not exactly the world's most likable character, I think, later on, but I thought she was pretty cool, to be honest.
Cool. So you talked about this a little bit. It's really exciting to see a protagonist who's exploring gender and a non-binary major character / potential love interest / super crush worthy.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, I don't see it a lot, and I don't see it a lot in fantasy. I feel like when I'm making my LGBTQ list, it's like all contemporary titles. Yeah. So maybe it is in fantasy. I mean, I don't read as much fantasy, so maybe it's just a blind spot for me. But I felt like this was very unique in that it did explore gender, and it's this sweet queer romance at the middle of it. So one thing that was really cool was how normal it felt to love Cielo. It wasn't like Teo's looking at Cielo and thinking, oh no, but why would I be attracted to a girl when she's in her girl form? There's no questioning that. It just feels normal. And I loved that because it doesn't always have to be this uncomfortable search.
Or like the hidden, the secret thing.
Right. It just felt like, oh, there's Cielo, and I'm sure that Cielo was a girl last time. And now Cielo's a boy, and there's still that spark between them. So I just loved how normalized it was. And I also liked that it played upon that, that the girl dresses as boy. That's like a trope. We see that a lot, which is interesting. But this one was cool because the character actually transforms into a boy.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem like a boy when she is as a boy. Like, she seems like uncomfortable in the boy's body, as I said before. It's more as a disguise. But Cielo's not that way. As far as looking at Cielo from Teo's view, it seemed like Cielo was very much just fluid.
Interesting.
So it was very cool. I loved it. And as I said, I think Cielo's super crush worthy. I hope you will read it and just
super cool.
like that.
So finally, this is the first in an Italian-inspired fantasy novel duet. What are your hopes for the second book?
So the second book is Storm of Life. My hopes are for fireworks. Okay. I just think it's going to be like all-out resistance. They're going against Capital. She's got to get all the Strega together to rally against the bad dictators. Their romance is going to fly. I mean, we've already seen a spark of that. There's definitely all the tinglies in there, but this next installment is really going to, I think, hit the high notes. So it should be really fun.
Great.
It's an epic conclusion, okay? That's what I'm expecting. No pressure.
No pressure at all.
She'll deliver. She always does.
She will. So, what's up next?
All right. Next up, Liz will be back in the studio with me. I'm going to be reading Bygone Badass Broads by Mackenzie Lee. And Liz will be reading Her Story by Catherine Halligan and Brazen by Penelope Bajou. So Liz kind of wanted to read both and have it as a feminist theme.
Cool.
So I'm going to try to gear my questions to both of those stories. I'm sure we'll find some common themes.
Neat.
All right, and listeners, remember, if you get a chance to share your own stories from the jar of teen angst, please do. Those questions were, where do you go camping? Do you have any favorite spots? And tell us your worst camping or most funny camping stories. Tell us about your job. What is it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you ever screw it up? And then also tell us about commute stories. Did you walk to school? Do you ride the bus? Do you drive? Does anything interesting ever happen? Likewise, if you have any questions about reading recommendations or library life, please write to us at teentitletalk@gmail.com, and we'll read a few of our listener responses next time.
Thanks for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and DCAM, Derry Community Access Media. Our theme was created and performed by Banded Starling. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.